Thanks. First of all, thanks to both of you for stepping up like this. What do you see the role of the chairman in particular and the Republican Party in North Carolina in general is in regards to vetting candidates that say they're Republican and running for a Republican nomination, or running for it, or running for the general, and in regards to holding the elected Republicans' feet to the fire, consistent with the conservative Republican values?
As far as vetting candidates go, it's not the chair's job to decide who's qualified to run or not. While having said that, I mean, we also, as part of my training program, is making sure you understand what you're getting into and understanding the commitment that running for, whether it's a municipal, statewide, or a federal office, whether, you know, what that's going to take. I also see it as something that I want to do is help to educate them, you know, perhaps to understand that, you know, you don't always have to answer the question the journalist asks, and help some of the candidates to understand how to work within the system that they're going to be living in for anywhere from, you know, 3, 4, 5 months into 2 years when you're running for some of the federal candidates, to help them to understand that. And then the second part is, you know, within subject to a candidate going up to the point of sanction, it's not any of the executive board's position to do that. We had that situation in Mecklenburg County. Unfortunately, occurred after we had produced our palm guide, and we had a lot of people that came real close to carpal tunnel as they were crossing off his name from the palm card because he had put out some information that was racist, and we didn't find out about it until after the palm card got out. Which, you know, you need to at least take a look at that and understand, you know, who's getting out there, but then also help to train them. As far as, you know, we can encourage or we can discourage, but as far as preventing or allowing them, I don't go that far. Hopefully that answers.
Well, I certainly agree with Jack that it shouldn't be up to the chairman ultimately to vet. If you read the state plan of organization, a lot of that responsibility of identifying the candidates in the first place rests with the district and the county organizations. After all, they're your representatives. Why shouldn't you choose who represents you in your area, in your district? Is that not what the process is all about? I do believe that they have a certain oversight responsibility to make sure, one, that if a candidate, for example, presented themselves and publicly went out and advocated for something contrary to the values stated in the platform, that the chairman would take whatever measures to ensure that those subordinate levels within the organization were certainly, one, aware of it, made a conscious decision of how to handle it, and then acted on it in the best interest of their area. But to say that the chairman should dictate who can run, or to choose to exclude somebody who is otherwise approved by their representative district, I think would be wholly inappropriate. Any other questions?
Any more questions?
The second part of my question was about holding their feet to the fire when they're elected.
Once they're elected, yeah, I'm going to lost for words.
It is on tape.
No, see, this is where the confusion is coming. Who is responsible for how your elected official votes in office? We the people. We the people. Do they have a role to play in it? What does their authority in the plan of organization really allow them to do above and beyond what we each can do as a citizen? I'm not aware of anything in the plan of organization that gives the chairman the duty or the responsibility for doing that beyond any other citizen. If somebody can point it out to me, I would certainly be glad to entertain the notion. But again, we are viewing government in so many ways these days on the basis of what we wish it would do, what we wish the rules were. And the reason we get into trouble is because we use that as justification. The ends justify the means. No, the plan of organization is what it is. And unless it specifically authorized something like that in the plan of organization, no, I would sit back and keep my mouth shut, other than as a private citizen.
This is, from what I understand, I think you're capable of censuring somebody. I think at the last state convention, somebody was originally on the delegate list, but then someone stood up and said, you know, yeah, I guess he had some extra.
That's an action of the state executive committee.
Oh, only the state executive, not the state chairman?
As I understand it.
Okay, can't direct or anything like that as far as I recommend. I don't know. You guys have read it a lot better than I, so if anybody else knows more of the details on it.
We had a censure in Scott County. We had one in our Forsyth County. Maybe that's what you're talking about?
Well, no, I think this was back east, but was that initiated by executive committee or by the county chair? Or?
County executive committee, so at the state level, I would expect to probably.
Okay, all right.
All right, Jack, you want to respond to the censure thing? Or?
One of the things that you got to be careful of when you're on the executive committee is the role as chairman or vice chairman and the role as citizen. One of the things that you'll run into a lot is the whole concept that the executive committee cannot support or endorse a candidate during the primary. Now, my personal opinion is that doesn't mean that Jack Rush because I am chair doesn't mean I lose my voice as Jack Rush. And that if I'm having a private conversation with anybody out here, I can tell you how I think, I can tell you how I feel. I'm not going to go out and start making phone calls to present that information, but if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it as an individual citizen. But I'm also, you know, as a chair, I'm also going to talk about the platform, both the state platform and the national platform, and make, you know, and look at enlightenment of a candidate's policies or a candidate's statements out there. You got to do a lot, you know, I'm familiar with Scott's situation. Part of his county is in my district, so I'm familiar with that situation. And nobody that I'm aware of on any executive committee likes it when it gets to that situation. When you actually have to sanction somebody, something's broken down and it's not a good situation. And I believe the state situation that you were talking about was we had a, I believe it was we had a member of the executive committee that was sanctioned who then wanted to run for office, and the sanction had occurred 5 years prior, so there was a question of expiration.
I have a question.
And you have the mic.
And I have the mic.
Oh, God.
What is the one thing that differentiates you from the current GOP chair in our state?
That would suck. That'd be up first, yeah. Just one? Come on. The biggest one that I think is that I believe in transparency, and I think that belief in transparency will lead to across the board, whether it's financial aspects of raising money and where we spend money. There's a lot of question as to how the party supported Secretary or Council of State candidates this last election. Transparency in how we make the rules and go forward, to transparency in information that people want from the party. The numbers that I gave you regarding counties' attendance were from 2 years ago, because I still can't get the information from 1 year ago, and you know, I can't get those out of the party. So there's a lot of information. Oh, speaking of which, and it's kind of a side subject, but I'm still within my 2 minutes. If anybody happens to know, I heard a rumor that said the rules committee of the party was considering a 90-day prior deadline for nominations to state convention. And I have yet to see a copy of the rules for convention. Rules for convention are separate from the NC Plan of Organization.
I'm on the rules committee for the convention.
Right.
They haven't sent out anything to even give us any decision-making yet.
For those that aren't aware, the Plan of Organization says the committee shall be convened no less than 1 week after the national election. So that committee should have occurred on November 14th. Yeah.
It was the same last year with all the other committees, investment committees, they wait till the last minute.
Well, thank you, Jim. I like the easy questions. Because the one thing that differentiates me from Chairman Hayes also differentiates me from any of the other possible candidates, including Jack. I've never run for public office, I've never held public office, and I have no intention of doing either. My focus by being chair would be strictly on building the Republican Party in North Carolina, not using it as a stepping stone to some other office. And I'm not casting aspersions at Jack. I have no idea what his other future plans might be. But I know that there's some contemplating running who do, in fact, have aspirations for higher office and believe that a stint as state chair would take them to that next level. Quite frankly, at my age, being retired from the military already, I have no conflicts of interest. I have no stock portfolio, I have no investment real estate, I have no business ties to anybody else in the state that would present a conflict of interest. The only people that I have to be worried about benefiting are the registered Republicans in North Carolina and growing the conservative voice. That's the key difference. Now, I will tell you that when I was in the service, every 2 or 3 years, they yanked me out and threw me in a new location, a new organization, a new mission. And as an officer, you were expected to hit the ground running. And I believe that same skill set, even though I've never held a high level in a public office, I can tell you, when I left the campus of A&T and arrived at the Pentagon in Washington, I hadn't been there either, but I had to hit the ground running because I understand the ground rules, I understand the people, I know how to assess the mission, the resources, and the constraints to operate within. I don't seek to be the genius in the room. I just have to be smart enough to spot the geniuses in the room. Because, folks, you don't campaign in the 11th District in the mountains like you do in the 1st District on the coast. You don't go door to door where it's a mile up the mountain and a mile down across the valley and a mile up the mountain to the next house. This is about empowering the county organizations, but holding them as responsible as we would hold our elected officials responsible. Those are duties assigned in that plan of organization, not just convenient options. People in the county organizations down at the precinct level have to do what needs to be done. And we have to find people willing to do that. We have to get out and recruit. And one of the things that draws people to us is having an understandable, rational, reasonable plan for victory. Who in their county actually had a written plan in 2012 for victory? I don't think it existed. I'm not trying to turn this into a military organization. I'm just saying that for the same reason that any other company out there has trouble, what do? They go hire an outside consultant. Somebody who understands organizational effectiveness and management. I'm not burdened by the way things have been done in the past because I'm not invested in it. I have no history with it. So that would allow me to take a very fresh perspective, and I think that would give license to everybody else maybe to let go of some of those old ways and say, yes, there is a better way that we can do what we've been doing. Next question.
Question I want to ask you is, I'd like a personal example from your lifetime where you had to make a stance on an issue going against the popular opinion of the people in your organization. Basically, what I want to know is how strong is your backbone whenever your feet's to the fire and you have to make a stand? A personal example.
Okay. In 1990, in the early months of 1990, after I was at the Pentagon, I was given a new assignment. I was assigned as a project manager of a $6 million computer project. And ladies and gentlemen, at that moment in time, I could spell computer correctly 2 out of 3 times on a given day. That's how much I knew about computers. And I even asked my boss, "Are you setting me up to fail?" And he said, "No." I mean, frankly, I was petrified. What do I know about computers? In that role as the project manager and computer technology being new at that infantile state that the industry was at that point in time, I mean, a 286 was a fast computer, and a 300 megabyte hard drive was as big as this podium right here. I had to do battle with technical experts. I had to stand up and say, "I don't care what your technology says the computer does, I need to see what comes out the slot." You know, you can put all the theory you want to into the design of this thing, but what's it going to do coming out the slot? And I had zero credibility with the techie people because they knew I didn't understand computers. And I went to battle with them, and I fought on numerous issues, and at the end of the day, the project was completed on time and $500,000 under budget because of my perception and my recommendations. That's why I stood my ground. That's why I made major about 4 years earlier than most of the other captains in my year group.
Goes back to, I ran in the 12th. I'm still not sure there's not a, for those of you, 5150 order out there on me somewhere. For those that aren't familiar, that's incarceration under somebody else's direction. In doing that, there were 3 separate occasions where Richard Hudson, running in the 8th, Robert Pittenger, running in the 9th, and Jack Brosh, running in the 12th, were at a event. And the first 2 names were invited up on stage to talk to the audience. The third was not, because the party was deathly afraid that I might actually motivate the base of the Democratic Party and get them out to vote. Well, I had a conversation with the gentleman that was in charge of the party of Romney's campaign here in North Carolina, and I basically said, "Look, if you're chicken to tell me the truth, fine. Just admit it, and we can, walk away. Because I can understand that we may disagree, and we can agree to disagree, and we'll just call it a day. But what's going on here? Because if that's your motivation, if you're afraid of motivating the base, I want to say to you, and I want to say, thank you very much. Because you're telling me that I have the skill set to do something Barack Obama isn't going to do. Because you don't think he's going to campaign in the 12th, a VRA district, Voting Rights Amendment district, with a 61% population of minority voters. You don't think he's going to make sure they get out and vote in North Carolina? So thank you very much for that. Now, having said that, will I run again in 2014 when motivating the base may be a factor? Because then the congressional races will be top of the ticket. I'm not so sure I'll be running in 2014. I'm not so sure that I won't. Probably won't. I know the coffers tell me I won't. But at that point, I may actually motivate some voters to get out that will hurt down ticket races. So that was one of the stances within the party that I took. Jim?